Alright, hello everyone. It's Nigel here, and this is going to be another crime analysis video. So, this one is going to be talking about Chris Benoit. So, we will get into that in just a moment, but for starters, first things first, if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is under my name, Nigel Dixie, and we do various videos such as, the crime analysis videos, we got movie reviews, we got video game reviews, and I want to do some other cool stuff as well for the channel. Let me know what you guys want to see on the channel. Second announcement is that, of course, there's not going to be a System Shock Radio video this week because I am doing this crime analysis. I wanted to make sure I got it up before the end of the month because, I try to do these at least once a month. So this will be up, of course, today, and pretty much as late as I can get away with. But System Shock Radio will, of course, be back, as well as Tales from the Labyrinth, next week with a bit of a twist. It's to the norm, which I'll go into further detail about when I get to that later on. But the last and most important thing, as with all these crime analysis videos, viewers' discretion is advised. You are going to hear some very uncomfortable things that definitely will make you uncomfortable, will for sure, or possibly make you a bit nauseous. So be forewarned, of course, if these types of videos aren't really your thing. Feel free to skip this one. You don't have to watch this one, but I try to do these for a couple of different reasons. Of course, because I find them interesting, and hopefully you guys do as well. But also, if you're someone who didn't know about this case, you may have heard of it, you may have heard a little bit about it, but didn't really know what it was about, then here you are. I can, break this down for you. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So, we're going to start off with who exactly is Chris Benoit. So, he was born Christopher Michael Benoit on May 21st, 1967, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So, a few months before my mom, fun fact. And he was a professional wrestler, and he was trained in the Hart family dungeon by Stu Hart, which was the patriarch of the Hart family. So, like Bret Hart, Owen Hart, stuff like that. That's their dad. And, of course, the Hart family dungeon, where a lot of superstars trained to be wrestlers, and a lot of the best came out of the Hart family dungeon, such as Chris Jericho. I believe Edge was in the Hart family dungeon, and of course Bret and Owen, as well as Jim Neidhart, I believe, was in the Hart family dungeon as well. He wrestled for various promotions in various places, such as New Japan Pro Wrestling, Stampede Wrestling, ECW, WCW, and the WWE. A very decorated performer in those regards. He was known for his rather short stature. He was very short, but he had a lot of technical prowess, which included a lot of good holds, grapples, submissions, stuff like that. And his wrestling style in the ring is similar to that of, for those of you who watch AEW nowadays, he's similar, in fact, to Bryan Danielson in a lot of his moves and stuff, including the flying headbutt and everything. I noted that Bryan Danielson's moveset very similar to Chris Benoit, but his nicknames included things like the Rabid Wolverine and the Crippler, and that was his finisher name as well, the Crippler Crossface. He won several championships and several accolades throughout his wrestling career, which included multiple world championships in both WCW and WWE. He was tag team champion. He was Intercontinental and U.S. champion. He was actually both U.S. champion in both WCW and in WWE after, the buyout in 2001 and everything. He's a Triple Crown champion. He actually was Triple Crown champion in WCW and in WWE as well. So, very decorated, and he is the winner of the 2004 Royal Rumble, and he is out of all three people who have entered the Royal Rumble at #1 to win the whole Royal Rumble, he is the second person to do so, but he's not mentioned as such. They won't mention that he was the one and who won from #1 in the 2004 Royal Rumble, and you are about to find out why. He had 3 children total: David, Daniel, and Megan. And David is also a professional wrestler as well, just like his father. So, now we get into the crime, which was a double murder-suicide. So, Chris Benoit met Nancy Sullivan, and who then, of course, became Nancy Benoit, while they were working together in WCW. The head booker at the time, Kevin Sullivan, who was Nancy's husband, booked them in a storyline together, which led to them falling in love in real life and having an affair. Kevin Sullivan famously booked his own divorce, as people would say, because there was a storyline where Kevin and Nancy, who was also known as Woman in WCW, were like going at it, and she was being consoled by Chris Benoit, and that led to them having a real life romance, which is not uncommon in the wrestling world. And she divorced Nancy divorced Kevin Sullivan in 1997, and pretty much full-time dating Chris Benoit, and they married in 2000. However, in 2003, Nancy actually filed for divorce, where she cited that the marriage was irrevocably broken. I apologize if I pronounced that word wrong. It was irrevocably broken, and that she was suffering cruel treatment with Benoit, and she said he was very violent. He was throwing furniture and everything. He had a temper about him, but she then dropped the suit. I believe they reconciled. I'm assuming they reconciled, and his son Daniel, that I mentioned, was Nancy's child. So the other 2 kids that Chris Benoit had, David and Megan, were from a previous marriage. So these murders and suicide took place between June 22nd and June 24th of 2007. And so, on the first day, which was June 22nd, it was indicated that Benoit strangled his wife by pressing his knee into her back while strangling her with a cord. And authorities determined that it took place on the 22nd, so she was the first to be killed. And then on the 23rd, is when they believe that his son Daniel was killed via strangulation. And it was said that he had internal injuries in his throat area, but there was no bruising on the outside, so it was asphyxiation, and they determined. And it was known that there were Bibles left beside both the bodies of both Nancy and Daniel. And on the evening of June 24th, Benoit hung himself from his pull-down weight machine, and so he tied a cord similar to a noose and hung himself from the machine. So it was determined by the investigators that Nancy had Xanax, hydrocodone, I apologize if I pronounced that wrong, and hydromorphone in her system, all at therapeutic levels, so not lethal enough to kill her, but just recreationally at like a low level, just for like, I'm guessing, anti-stress or something like that. And it was also determined that Daniel had Xanax in his system, which was enough to sedate him and thus make it easier for him to be killed. That's what the police determined. And Benoit was discovered to have Xanax hydrocodone in his system, similar to Nancy, but he also had elevated testosterone in his system, which was caused by a synthetic form of the hormone, which meant it was placed in his body artificially through the use of like steroids and stuff. So On Saturday, June 23rd at 3:30, Chris Benoit left a voicemail in the inbox of fellow wrestler and friend Chavo Guerrero, saying that he was going to be late to a WE house show that they were having that night in Beaumont, Texas. And he said the reason was that both Nancy and Daniel had food poisoning. Guerrero missed this call, of course, because, voicemail and everything. And so he called Benoit back, and Benoit pretty much confirmed everything that he already told Chavo in the voice message. And then Guerrero noted that Benoit sounded tired and groggy. And of course, this caused some concern with Chavo. So about 12 minutes later, Chavo called Benoit back. So the voicemail was at 3:30, so called him back at 3:42. But then at 3:44, about 2 minutes later, Benoit called him back, called Guerrero, saying that he changed his flight due to the food poisoning. So Guerrero said that he was here if Benoit needed him, to which Benoit ended that phone call by saying, "Chavo, I love you." So, in 2014, on the Talk Is Jericho podcast, which is hosted by Chris Jericho, Chavo stated that Benoit sounded off, and that the "I love you" sounded very concerning and everything. So, another coworker who was unnamed in these sources, there's that he was called Benoit, and Benoit told him that Nancy and Daniel were vomiting blood, and ultimately Benoit ended up no-showing the Beaumont house show. Benoit then left a voicemail for Chavo, saying that he would be arriving at the Houston airport at 8 a.m. the next day. So, between 3:51 a.m. and 3:58 a.m. on Sunday, June 24th, 5 text messages were sent to coworkers by both Benoit and Nancy's phone numbers, or so it may have been Benoit sending them, with 4 of the numbers, with 4 of the text messages, I should say, being the Benoit home address, and the 5th saying that the family's dogs were in the enclosed pool area and that a garage side door had been left open. And unfortunately, Benoit failed to appear at the airport at 8 a.m. like he said he would be. So, that night was an event hosted by WE. It was Vengeance Night of Champions. So, at that event, Chris Benoit was scheduled to face ECW champion CM Punk in an ECW championship match, which apparently after his death they said he was supposed to win that night, but unfortunately he didn't show that night. He called Talent Relations. He told him he'd be taking a later flight, but because of the food poisoning, he said he and Nancy were at the hospital because David had been throwing up. But Benoit ultimately no-showed the event, and he was replaced, I believe, by Johnny Nitro, who would then become John Morrison, who won the ECW title that night. So, by Monday, June 25th, Raw was being hosted in Corpus Christi, Texas. So, officials began growing concerned. Some of the WE officials were growing concerned because they hadn't heard from Benoit for over 24 hours. Nobody had seen him for days at this point. And both Chavo Guerrero and referee Scott Armstrong, who's senior official, showed WWE Vice President of Talent Relations John Laurinaitis the text messages they received the day before, the 5 text messages at the AM. Chavo said he saw them but fell back asleep as he believed he would be picking up Chris Benoit at 8 a.m. the next day, because that's when his flight was scheduled to be in. And so, after more time progressed in the afternoon, because it was getting closer to showtime and still no Benoit, W contacted the Fayetteville, Georgia police. Is where Benoit was staying, and they contacted them, told them to head over there for a welfare check, pretty much to see if Benoit was okay. And then at 4:15, the police informed WE that they found the bodies that I had described. So, after they found the bodies, that's when it became a crime scene, and that's where this all blew up. So, the aftermath after this was discovered, there were memorial services held, one for Nancy and David, the other for Chris himself. So, the one for Nancy and not David, Daniel. My apologies. Nancy and Daniel's memorial service was held in Daytona Beach, Florida, on July 17th of 2007, and then they were cremated and placed in starfish-shaped urns for Nancy Benoit's family. And a private memorial was held for Chris on August 6th of that year in Eldrosen, Alberta, Canada. Again, I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Although what happened to his ashes remain unknown. So that night, it was supposed to be a 3-hour show. Oh, and interestingly enough, at this point on TV, the Vince McMahon character was killed off as part of a storyline and everything. But because of the real life death of Chris Benoit, they had to nip that in the bud. But that is, of course, a topic for another time. But they nipped in the bud. Instead, it became a 3-hour memorial for Chris Benoit, which showed tributes and some of his best moments and everything. And they didn't know yet the details of what had took place. They didn't find out until yesterday. Not yesterday. They didn't find out until the next day, I should say. My apologies. But when they found out the next day, that's when they decided to distance themselves from Chris Benoit. They informed the audience and everything that because of the new details emerging from what happened to Chris Benoit, he was not to be mentioned on TV. His name, his likeness, all that was pulled from pretty much everything. From video games. He was supposed to be in that year's game, SmackDown vs. Raw 2008, but he ended up being cut from the game. DVDs, he was edited out from. Action figures, they stopped making action figures for him. Merchandise, stopped selling his merchandise, and stuff like that. And this ban on Chris Benoit, no mention of Chris Benoit. This is still a rule that is taking effect to this day. They're still not allowed to mention him at all on WWE TV. And for understandable reason, the fact that these details emerge and the company is tied to this and everything. And they still held some tributes, but they held tributes for, as they quoted, those who were affected by the circumstances and everything. But the band performed Chris Benoit's entrance theme. Our Lady Peace is the name of the band, and the song was called Whatever. And they decided that they were never going to play that song again. They vowed that they would never perform the song at any concerts because of the controversy and everything, which is unfortunate because, while yes, it is tied to Chris Benoit, it's actually, in my opinion, a pretty good song. But of course, because of the controversy and everything, they felt it would be inappropriate and a bad look for them to play this song and it's associated with this person and what he did. Now, people wanted answers after this. And a lot of people were speculating, why did this happen? What was Chris Benoit doing? Why did he do this? And there are a few factors that people brought up. The first was the death of Eddie Guerrero. So Eddie Guerrero is Chavo Guerrero's uncle and very well beloved, respected wrestler. He passed away in November of 2005, and he was a very close friend of Chris Benoit. And a lot of people said he was extremely depressed because of the death of his friend Eddie. If you see during the tribute videos for Eddie, because they also did a tribute night for him, and after he passed, Chris Benoit in his tribute just breaks down crying, can barely finish his sentence. it's hard to watch, and it's gut wrenching. It's heart wrenching to see just how he reacted and everything to the death of Eddie Guerrero. He took it very, very hard. But there was other things swirling around. So there's a former wrestler, W superstar named Christopher Nowinski, and of course his gimmick was that he was a Harvard graduate. I think he did graduate from Harvard Law School in real life. He suggested to Chris Benoit's father that multiple concussions and head trauma to Chris Benoit altered his behavior, and CTE scans of Chris Benoit's brain seemed to indicate this as well. It was said by Nowinski that his brain, when it was scanned, Chris Benoit's brain, when it was scanned, resembled that of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. And so imagine the amount of trauma and just blows to the head, and imagine what impact that has on the brain. And that's something that's been talked about a lot in the NFL and everything. A lot of the concussions and stuff, and how it affects behavior and physical movement and mental state and everything. That's a huge topic of interest in sports, even to this day. And the other thing was steroids, which of course Chris Benoit had steroids, had illegal steroids in his possession, and so WWE was investigated for that, and it led to WWE tightening their wellness policy. It was now airtight. The drugs that were omitted from the list of accepted drugs for the wellness policy became a lot more strict in light of what happened with Chris Benoit, and it was put in place at first, almost kind of ironically, because of Eddie Guerrero, who I just mentioned. So that was put in place in that, and then it was just strengthened after this stuff went down with Chris Benoit. And now, a big question that people have been talking about ever since is, should Chris Benoit be allowed in the WWE Hall of Fame? So, for those who don't know what that is, the WWE Hall of Fame celebrates the success, and the accomplishments of several WWE superstars and legends. So, The Undertaker's going in this year, same with Vader and the Steiner brothers and Queen Sharmell. There are other Hall of Famers out. Other Hall of Famers, some of the biggest names in not just wrestling but WWE as well, such as Booker T, Kurt Angle, Sting, Edge. It's Triple H is sure to be in there one day. D-Generation X, the NWO, all that, and a lot of people want Chris Benoit to be among that list. There are those who believe that despite his actions, his wrestling accomplishments should not be ignored, and his Hall of Fame worthy. And that's something that I've definitely noted, is that if it wasn't for this, Chris Benoit, a lot of people argue that if it wasn't for this, what happened, this controversy and everything, Chris Benoit would be in the Hall of Fame by now. He definitely would be deserving. If he wasn't in the Hall of Fame, he definitely would be in talks of the Hall of Fame. But there are those who feel that what he's done is unforgivable, and that he should never be allowed in the WWE Hall of Fame because of what he did, because of the controversy surrounding him. And that is understandable. It's hard to rationalize glorifying Chris Benoit and what a wrestler he was when this negative connotation, this huge controversy is surrounding him going into the Hall of Fame. The amount of pushback, a lot of people, I'm sure, are very wary of it, and him not being in the Hall of Fame. For example, with Jimmy Snuka, he was accused of involuntary manslaughter of his girlfriend, and so a lot of people were calling for him not to be in the Hall of Fame. He is still in the Hall of Fame, but a lot of people believed he shouldn't go in because of that. And sometimes personal animosity prevents people from going in the Hall of Fame. And some would argue that the Steiner brothers should have been in a long time, but because of how the Steiners, particularly Scott Steiner, feels about WWE, that's why neither he nor Rick have been in yet. But Yeah, to have this like controversial person be in the Hall of Fame would definitely be a very bad look for the WWE. But Chris Benoit, believe it or not, is in a Hall of Fame. He's in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. So, Wrestling Observer is a newsletter run by Dave Meltzer, or some of you may have heard of him. And he's the one who gives the star ratings to the different matches. And he was added there in 2003. Well, he was still alive and everything. But in 2008, there was a poll up should Chris Benoit still be in the Hall of Fame, and a lot of people voted that yes, he should be removed from the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame, but there was not enough votes to remove him, so he is still there to this day. But yeah, this unfortunate situation has tainted what a lot of people consider a fantastic wrestler. Or a lot of people have put Chris Benoit, in terms of just his wrestling alone, in their even top 3. Some people top 5, top 10. Some people have put him up there in top 3. And based off his matches alone, it's hard to argue with them. But because of this, it'd be hard to rationalize. Like I said, it'd be very hard to rationalize him going in the Hall of Fame. But unfortunately, even more than that, his son, David Benoit, is a wrestler as well. And it's unfortunate because I personally believe that he will never be in WWE, mainly because of what his father did. Now, David and his sister were actually in Canada with their mother at the time of the merge and everything, but because of this, and because of all the negativity surrounding this, and because of the PR, it would be, why are you bringing him in? He's the son of Chris Benoit. He murdered his wife and child, and he killed himself and everything. That now falls on David, who's still young in his wrestling career, but that connotation is going to stick with David, and that sadly isn't fair to him, but that is how it is. But what I'm not here to do is make a judgment call at all. If you believe that he should be in the Hall of Fame, that is what you believe. If you don't believe that he should be in the Hall of Fame, that is what you believe. And honestly, it's up to you. All I do is present you with the facts here, or what happened, and I let you make the judgment for yourself. I do feel like what happened to him, his concussion and everything, definitely altered his behavior, but ultimately there's no excuse for the murders and suicide that he committed. He committed an absolutely heinous act here, and it's going to taint his legacy forever. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. And like I said, System Shock Radio and Tales from the Labyrinth are going to be next week. And I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it is indeed graphic in nature. And I will see you guys later. Peace.